we are kind of breaking some of their most popular axioms, beliefs, and principles they truly believe in. It's like literally bursting the bubble.
I know I watched him like 10 years ago or something, and now he's suddenly there. I was like, oh, what is this guy actually doing nowadays? And now he's coming out and talking about how his body is like broken.
At some point, people have the come to Jesus moment. The sign of intelligence is not that you immediately know what to do. The sign of intelligence is actually...
Real sadness here is that there's so many people who probably encounter these things and much worse problems with their body, but they are so fixated on the idea, so they cannot change the path.
They would just say, yeah, it's part of the game to have like injuries and surgeries and joint problems and like this, but we never subscribe to this idea because
what requires mental strength is to change your training style. You have to grow into this adulthood where you take a deep look at yourself and you see like what can you do to make things better.
The rock climbers, when they go to the gym, it's like it's almost nothing because they have just built so much like actual practical functional strength, and the reason why it's so functional and so practical is because
there is an alternative that you can do with your body. Even if you never lifted weights, you can be incredibly strong, you can be incredibly functional, you can feel incredibly good in your body, you can feel confident actually in your body. So apparently we are big haters, and this is just due to some of the recent reels that we put out, and they still continue to get a lot of traction, especially the stuff that when we talk about ancient training methods, and we also talk about strongmen's powerlifting and these kind of things. And I think when we are bringing out these examples such as the Eddie Hall or even the Thor, like people like to kind of try to refute the argument by stating that, you know, this is hating or something. Whereas, you know, what I'd like to say is that, for example, these two persons, I followed them for many, many years. I have, you know, I like actually what they do. I like a lot of things that they do, and you know, I enjoy, for example, following them. So the thing is that they are just very, very good examples in many cases of what we are talking about, because these are like one of the most well-known persons in these circles, and they're also two of the probably the strongest persons in terms of these strongman lifts and powerman lifts, and they've also transferred to other physical areas such as boxing, MMA, grappling. So this makes a very fascinating case study or an example of people who are, you know, strong in these particular lifts, and then they try to do other stuff. So this is not, for me, this is like interesting to follow what they're doing and see how they're actually doing. And I would give very like big props and even credentials for them, because they are going outside of their comfort zones. So not many people who are in the powerlifting or things, they don't try this stuff because it will break their ego quite a lot. So I would say that, for example, the ego of Eddie Hall or Thor is much less, they have much less ego than a lot of their followers who try to come into the comments and try to like defend these people and say that we're just hating. But this is like, we're giving, of course, we have been like bursting a bubble. That's very clear. Like we are kind of breaking this image, a very strong image that many people have of strength. And I can understand that it causes kind of defensive reaction. But we are always trying to also bring the other side to the table. We're trying to show, okay, what can you actually do if this isn't the only thing that you should be doing, these kind of lifts or fight by the big five lifts or something, like what should you actually be doing? This is what we want to talk about and give a more maybe even much more well-rounded perspective into this type of traditional strongman powerlifting training and into the methods that we are actually using.
Yeah, actually, because the big thing is that because in the mainstream fitness and the conventional strength circles and in powerlifting and even among strongmen and all these strength training circles, like we are kind of breaking some of their like the most popular axioms, like the beliefs and principles they like truly believing. Like we are like the completely the opposite. For example, one of the biggest axioms they believe in is that the modern training is the highest level, and the modern lifters are the strongest ever in history. And when we say like maybe that's not the case, then they act like, of course it has to be like this, and there's something wrong. And another thing is that also that we are also breaking the axiom that the number and the lift is the equivalent to strength and being strong. And also we also breaking the axiom that you should identify with the numbers, you should identify with the lifts, and how it's tied to your self-worth and how you see yourself. Because we are actually already many years ago, we made many videos about how it doesn't even matter how much you lift.
Yeah, we've been doing this for years.
Yeah, like for 5 years or more. So that's another thing that's very much against one of the biggest axioms of these people. And then we also, in terms of lifestyle, we are also very against some of the big axioms, such as these people, they think everyone is on steroids, and steroids is the only way to reach the highest level. And we are very much against this idea as well. And this is one of the most prevalent ideas among many, let's say, powerlifting and lifting circles, because a lot of these guys are on like so much gear and so much everything. And we are saying that no, steroids is not the only way, and it's not the way to reach the highest level. Like you can do it even without, because in history, over 100 years ago, there's so many different names who reach like insane feats of strength before like steroids were even invented, like names such as Arthur Saxon, who made records that still today has not been broken. So when you add this all together, it's like literally bursting the bubble. Like it's destroying everything some people believing. Like they think steroids is the only way, and we are saying, no, that's not the way, and here's why. Like we are always explaining why. Like that's one thing, and then we're saying it doesn't really matter how much you lift, and it doesn't mean that you're actually strong if your deadlift and squat are very high. It's only one indicator, and in a big complete sense, it's still very lacking. Like that alone is not enough, and we are breaking that thing as well. Like it's not true. And then there are so many other things that maybe in the ancient times people were actually much smarter than we think today, because nowadays it's the modern ego is that it's always in the modern time or the present time, people always think we are the smartest. Like 100 years ago, that's very funny thing, because 100 years ago the richest people actually had access to the worst possible healthcare ever. Because the 100 years ago the all these like the modern like health practices were like more damaging than actually helping. So actually the poor people did just some fasting and some like almost or nothing at all.
Or nothing, yeah.
So nothing at all, and it was actually better than the rich people who had access to these freaking crazy like practices where they open like do the lobotomy and whatever, like maybe 200 years ago. So and nowadays it's still the same case. Like people think right now we know the best about everything, but that's another thing we don't believe in.
Yeah, it could
necessarily
be. But it's a good point though to make, like that sometimes what we see as is on the highest level is not even the best thing for the human body. I think the modern era is like filled with stuff.
And I think we will, at some point, we will discover that all these modern health practices, like what I mean is that all these medications and pharmaceuticals, they are actually very bad for the body and very bad for healing the body. But now it's like the consensus and the understanding that this is how you actually treat different illnesses and how you treat all these things. And likewise, I think the same applies to a lot of like strength training as well. Like people think now we have figured it out and this is like the best way. But what we have discovered is that it's still lacking and so limited to compare to like even to ancient methods.
Yeah,
and we have discovered.
It's interesting. Like I feel like there are certain strongmen also and even powerlifters who are like coming out. They're kind of like they are already acknowledging that there's what they've been doing has been harmful, and it actually has been abusing. Like people are talking about this. Even people who've been for many years advocating this like just doing like 5x5, big five, and so on. Like it's not only that we are even talking about. Like some people are becoming like more and more transparent. You know, for instance, just thinking about like this guy who used to be like one of the most popular fitness YouTubers, Elliott Hulse. Like I hadn't seen his videos in years. And then, you know, there was some video that actually bumped into Samuli's feed. He sent it to me because it was quite interesting video, some more recent video from him. And then I started to look a bit more of his videos because it's quite interesting, you know, a guy who's kind of like, I know I watched him like 10 years ago or something, and now he's suddenly there. I was like, wow, what is this guy actually doing nowadays? And for example, he had a video where he talks about, you know, that he was like a hypocrite because he was talking about strength. He was talking about being the strongest version you can be. But he also mentioned that at the same time, you know, he had his bicep tear, he had his Achilles tendon rupture. I think he also talked about the number of other tightnesses, his experience or some postural issues. So he was talking about this very openly. And I know that he was one of the big guys who made like videos that were hugely popular about like strongman training, about doing like just, for example, 4 different lifts. Like this is the funny thing. Like it's kind of like a clickbait video like subject where they have like, if I only had to do like 4 exercises for the rest of my life, what would I do? And I think it's quite a funny hypothesis anyway. But for example, this type of videos, and now he's coming out and talking about how his body is like broken. And he still continues actually doing these heavy lifts, from what I can tell, which is, I find it very interesting. Like, you know, why is he still? It feels like even his idea, even though he recognizes that his body is broken, the idea in his head is tied into the fact that he needs to lift heavy weight. Like when he says that he is maybe only 20 to 30% of his potential, and that's really like a sad situation. Like what does it mean 20 to 30%? Like does it mean that he would be lifting 70% more in weight? Because I feel like it's still, this is like the real sadness here is that there's so many people who probably encounter these things and much worse problems with their body, but they are so fixated on the idea that their strength is the numbers. So they cannot change the path, and they cannot see the way that they could be a lot stronger as a whole, even if they lifted a lot less weight compared to what they maybe used to lift or what they would be lifting now.
It's a lot about redefining what strength actually is, that it can be a lot wider and bigger concept than just the lift.
Yeah.
Or the number of the lift. But Elliott Hulse is a good example, but there's so many different examples. Like, because what we have been doing for over like 7 years, this thing is where almost everyone is going. Like at some point people have the come to Jesus moment. Like Elliott Hulse, he broke his biceps and Achilles tendons and like this. And Kali Muscle, he had like heart attacks. And then let's say Eddie Hall, he was super strong as a strong man, but then he started doing like boxing and MMA. And then he discovered that, oh crap, I need to be doing something else as well, because this is not giving me the performance I need. So even because what I'm saying is that people, in the beginning, they're doing like the craziest stuff ever, but eventually they will find the path where we have been already for 7 years. Because actually the sign of intelligence is not that you immediately know what to do. The sign of intelligence is actually how fast you can figure it out, what is the best path and the best thing for you. And for us, like, we didn't start like doing this, what we are doing now. We were doing exactly the same things as everyone else. Like, exactly the same things.
Yeah, we experienced the same thing. But I don't know why we just made the change quite early. You know, that's a weird thing. Like, why did I not try to push that heavy weight and all that stuff up until this moment when I'm 30 years old or 32 or something?
Because that's what I mean is that when you have intelligence, when something happens, you know, like, okay, now I have to do something else. But people, because the slower you are in your head, the longer it takes to adjust. Like for example, some people, they make a mistake, then they make a mistake again, then they make the same mistake 5 times, and they still, maybe I should do something different. But then after 10 times, like some person might be like, okay, now I'm gonna do the right thing. And the intelligence is the speed of how fast you can adjust. For example,
rate of learning. Or
the rate of learning. When you're very smart, you make a mistake one time, maybe you change. But usually you make a mistake 2 times, because after 2 times you discover what is like, whether it's like a right path or not.
Yeah, I think like I made many mistakes in a short period of time. So there was definitely some maybe like 10 times mistakes or 20 times. It's hard to say, you know.
And
they were luckily they were never like rupturing something, but it was like pain still and agony.
And for us, because I remember when I started training like over 10 years ago, and I was doing the heavy lifts and heavy calisthenics, because I remember I was reading all the articles and the blog posts and forums and everything, and all these strong guys who had like the biggest lifts, they would just say, yeah, it's part of the game to have like injuries and surgeries and joint problems and like this. But we never liked this idea, and we never subscribed to this idea, because when we started to get pain, we tried to push through it, but then we pretty like relatively quickly we discovered or realized that this, like, we cannot go on like this, like, because we could see the future, like if it's already starts to be painful for the shoulder and the hip and the back, what is going to be in 5 years or 10 years, like, because we're already young and we already like fresh with like fresh joints, so how like in 10 years it's not going to get better, especially when the training is causing it.
In like early 20s experiencing this type of stuff. But that is such a dangerous idea. You said, you know, for them it's like they just say that, well, it's normal. So that's even like you can never almost like have the realization of the enlightenment even from the pain, because they turn the pain into a good thing. For them, like this type of joint pain is like part of it. So it's like the pain cannot even wake you up. Yeah, because when the pain hits your face, you're like, oh, it's just, that's how it's supposed to be. And
it's the Louie, Simmons, Joe Rogan, like the method. It's like just push through the pain, like David Goggins as well.
Yeah.
It's like the discipline and the mental toughness. It's super important.
It is,
but you should be like smart. Like it's like there's no, it's not like a sign of like a mental strength to destroy your body.
No. Yeah. I mean, what requires mental strength is to change your training style. That required mental strength, and it required, you know, like breaking, for example, the ego. A lot of the ideas that I had then, like I'm talking about, you know, we are bursting a bubble. My own bubble bursted, you know, many years ago, and it's not like it's not so easy mentally to kind of, how to say, like go through something like that. You really have to like have mental strength to go through that type of crisis with your body. And it's like especially to take responsibility. This is the problem also I see with the medical industry and stuff. Is like, it takes too much responsibility. Like people are like, they become like childs, like babies who are like, oh, just tell me what to do. Just give me the thing. Just give me the answer. Like you have to grow into this adulthood where, you know, you look at yourself, you take a deep look at yourself, and you see like, what can you do to make things better, and not just follow blindly certain paradigms or axioms from wherever they're coming from. Actually, it's a huge thing to take this responsibility over your body, and when you're just like you're giving away this power, and I think that sort of thing it's less mental strength. It's almost like it's a mental sickness to push through. Like you're hurting yourself. It is. I think this cannot be mixed up with the mental strength, or maybe they think that it is.
And we have spoken about this before, that we actually believe that the mainstream fitness is very self-destructive. Like there's some like mental problems with a lot of these bodybuilders, for example. They go to the gym as a form of therapy, and they try to destroy themselves even further. So it's kind of really self-destructive. And but like you said, the problem is like you said, our bubble burst a long time ago, and I remember very vividly that at the time, like I had very high, like strong lifts, like the 400 pounds deadlift, 180 kilos, then this very strong chin ups and pull ups and and rows and so many different things and push-ups with weighted weights. And for a moment I had to give up everything, and I had to realize that like these things do not define me. And because at the time I was feeling proud, like I was like, because I was never like a good athlete, I was never like a strong person before that. So once I reached these numbers, I was feeling like, yeah, now I got some strength and now I feel strong. But then the problem was that I was identifying with these numbers. I was identifying what I have achieved, and it's the same in every aspect of life. Like if you are like maybe become successful and then you start identifying with the money you make, it's a problem. And the same way, if you become an athlete or like a lifter and then you start achieving a certain lifts or whatever numbers, and you start identifying with these numbers, then it becomes a problem, because it's like some external thing which have very little to do with what actually is happening inside.
Yeah, actually, I started to think about one of the reasons why maybe I even made like some realization. I was able to make the change towards like what I would say more balanced, more healthier training methods, was that in my background I didn't like doing bodybuilding or heavy lifting. It was not my first style of training. Before that, I was a lot into martial arts. I did the teenage years, like the Taekwondo 4 years. I had tried some boxing. I had done some Thai boxing, and the capoeira for 2 years with you. I was tricking by myself after watching Jackie Chan movies, and with my friend I was doing calisthenics. So I had like from teenage years onward to early 20s, like I had already background in training and in very versatile movements actually. And so when I transferred my training first into this lifting, I got pretty obsessed. I was just admiring the bodybuilders of the golden era and silver era, and I was just I get obsessed with the looks of developing these bulging muscles and all that, and also then I got obsessed with the amount of weight that I lifted. I just noticed, oh, this is what this guy is doing, I need to do it too. And when it started to backfire on me, like this kind of obsession and doing too much of this type of training, I could kind of like go back and see and compare to my previous training and the way my body felt when I was doing that. So I could like, okay, there's actually something else there. I felt good when I was just flowing with the capoeira. Now I can still do some moves, but I'm feeling worse, and the flexibility that I had is like getting less and less. And I think that a lot of people, they get into training, they don't have even this kind of background that I had. So they just go straight to lifting and they don't even know any alternative. So for me, it was always like there isn't actually an alternative where you can feel super good in your body, you can feel confident in your body, you can feel healthy in your body, functional in your body. That was not even, had nothing to do with lifting, because I never lifted weights in the past. Actually, in my teenage years, for example, there was some of like in the high school, there was a lot of guys who went to the gym and lifted weights, and I was back then, this is not like a good judgment, but I was like, they just look too bulky, like it doesn't look good, like it's just they look tight, I was like teenager, but I was comparing them to Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee, who were like super agile guys. But I thought that weights are like harmful back then. So it is changed over the years when I then move on to the bodybuilding. But so there is an alternative that you can do with your body that has, even if you never lifted weights, you can be incredibly strong. You can be incredibly functional. You can feel incredibly good in your body. You can feel confident actually in your body. And it doesn't have to be this black and white. I'm not like I don't never lift weights. I do lift weights. But you have to understand that even if you never did one single traditional conventional deadlift in your life, you can be super strong. You can be like super functional athlete actually.
Yeah, you can actually become insanely strong without ever touching any weight.
Yeah.
And never even doing any lift. Like you can be strong because there's so many other things that actually make you strong. But like you said, that some people are so closed in this one idea that they cannot even see outside of it. And the thing is that, and because of that, they don't realize that there's so many different activities that build strength and make you strong, like maybe even more than these weights and lifts can do. For example, like people think swimming is endurance.
Yeah.
But swimming is actually like super good training for you, like the entire body, like in terms of muscles and strength. And then people think hiking. Let's say we went to just 2 days ago. We went to this uphill hike for almost 4 hours. We were just hiking like very steep hills,
Up and down,
mountains,
up and
like
down,
up and down, and it's like insanely good exercise for the legs and the ankles and hips and everything, and people don't even understand this, and this takes me to this another thing that, for example, like rock climbers or climbers in general, like they have some of the highest levels of like pulling strength and neuromuscular strength out of like any other type of like human being, and they don't necessarily do any lifting or not even like the basic pull-ups because they basically just freaking lifting like this, and they build like, because there's some people like the rock climbers, when they go to the gym, it's like it's almost nothing, like the weight is almost nothing because they have just built so much like actual practical functional strength. And the reason why it's so functional and so practical is because it has the principle of grip first principle, what is super important, and one of the main pillars of, like, for example, our training methods in, for example, Iron King method is the grip first, because when the grip is as involved in the lifts or in the exercising as the rest of the body, then you build the actual functional strength.
Yeah, this is like one of the big pillars. You have the grip strength is like a huge part of it. I think other factor that we have is the versatility of the movement. So you're doing a bunch of different movement variations. And I'd say the third one is this internal methodology, actually, which applies to everything that you're doing. Because we have been, for instance, talking about these exercises, like the big 5 lifts. So we have squat, we have deadlift, we have the bench press, and we have what is the pull-up and overhead press. So these are generally the exercises that are considered like the king of strength, for example. And ultimately, there's nothing wrong with these exercises per se, but they should be, for example, combined with a wider variety of exercises. Like all of these exercises or variations of them, we do, for example, with Athlete 20X method. Except for the bench press, we are doing different type of push-ups in replacing that. But we have these exercises are in the program. But the big difference is that we are not emphasizing the amount of weight. So every time people come up with the Big 5 program, the whole purpose of that program is that you would be lifting more and more weight all the time. In our methods, all these lifts are used as a tool to first and foremost learn about your body. You need to first learn about your body. You don't approach these exercises with this looking like this way, no, you approach them with a very humble, I'd say, attitude, humble mindset, in which you are first learning your body. After you start to learn how your muscles actually function within those movements, how does your hamstrings and glutes work when you're doing a deadlift or something like this way? Like how is everything tied up? How is the integrity in your body, the core stability, for example, its relationship to the hip movement, to the hip hinge? How does all this work? You're learning this in every single exercise. Or how does your shoulder blade work in relation to the actual deltoid? How do you stabilize shoulder blade and just move the humerus? You're learning all of this stuff when you're doing these exercises. And these exercises are tools for you to develop your muscles. You're not thinking about how much weight am I lifting or how much should I be increasing then because of progressive overload. You learn a ton of different methods that you can actually utilize without even increasing weight in order to make them more difficult, in order to make them more challenging, or in order to make them much more stimulating than they could even ever be necessarily if you're just focusing on lifting weights. So this is one of the things. It's not the exercises, it's the methodology that you put into them. This is again one of those things that we've been talking about for years already. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. We can do the same exercises that these other people are promoting. We just do them in a very different manner. And we never say that these are the only exercises that you need. These 5 or these 4 lifts.
Yeah, actually the simplification is a big problem, because I and Eero as well, we've experienced the problems firsthand in the beginning, because in the beginning I was doing like all these conventional lifts and conventional bodyweight exercises, like the big five, whether in the form of weights or in the form of like body weight. I was doing this religiously, like every week, many times per week, and it was like my main training. And what happened after 2 years or 3 years was that my body just became so imbalanced, because it targets the major movers of the body, but it still leaves so many different muscle groups like untouched. For example, my inner thighs, some parts of the hamstrings, a lot of parts in my back just were not properly developed at all. For example, I think a proper bodybuilding is much more balanced and a higher level of training in compared to, like, let's say what powerlifters do. Because they actually focus on the balance, they focus on every single muscle in the body. It's just not the most functional, because the bodybuilders generally, their angles are super weak, their grip is super weak, and also they like the mobility and movement. But in terms of like balanced muscle training, bodybuilders do amazing stuff.
Yeah, the highest level bodybuilders, they really know how to target even like Kai Green, like they're just like training this little muscle somewhere in their glute or in their shoulder. Like they a lot of them understand this. Not maybe the majority, but at least the best bodybuilders that are out there, like really understand how to develop this balance.
Yeah, actually, so I would even say, like, as a foundation, like it would have been better if I had done like proper bodybuilding, like very high level bodybuilding right from the start, like instead of powerlifting.
Yeah, and these even like let's say you're doing just 5 lifts, like it's not that it's like you can use that effectively, especially if you're in the beginning and you think about, okay, how you're carving like a statue, right? So if you're carving a statue, you don't immediately start to draw the details of the what is this like separation of the muscle and its tendons or whatever. Like you're just carving the broad lines of the body, like the overall big shape. And this is in the same way, like you could use potentially like just 5 exercises. You carve out the broad lines of your body, in the beginning. Like this can be good. You can even do that for a period of time and it may be fine. But and it will work, especially if you apply a good methodology. The problem is that most people who do this, they don't. They just observe the weight. So, but you can get a bit like far with this. But the idea that then you would do this for 2 years, 3 years, maybe 10 years, just continue with the same things is this will leave you imbalanced. This will definitely leave you imbalanced, and it will leave you probably with a lot of even wear and tear issues. Like over time, there's going to be diminishing returns from focusing on just 4 or 5 exercises, which I think they should not be the kings of exercise. They are not the kings of exercises. They are on the same level, on the same par with other exercises, actually, with most other exercises.
Yeah, and another thing is that, as a beginner, like almost anything you do will be very good.
Yeah.
So, but the higher you want to climb, the more like a wider the selection of your exercises have to become. And but then there's another thing is that if you are already at a very high level, then you can get away with just doing like the basics.
Yeah.
So it's like in the beginning, the basics are they work, and then at the highest level it works as well.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
For example, if you are like, let's say, already very well trained, high level MMA fighter, or like a football player or soccer player, your like ankles and grip and so many things in your body are already very well developed. Then when you add, let's say, some deadlifts and squats and the rows and pull-ups, then it's like it's a very good addition, and it will make you better. But where the problems really lie is in the middle, and if you and in the imbalances and lack of certain like aspects of strength and control and like this.
Oh yeah, and I feel like people don't, like, we've gone through many phases, right? We had not powerlifting, but let's say heavy lifting phase. We had a bodybuilding phase. We had a movement phase where that was movement and mobility phase. We had this like stability athletic phase. We had a Qigong phase. We had a like this Iron King method, which is our latest method, which we kind of transferred into more this ancient strength training methods. Like you can do a particular type of method, right, for a period of time, for even a year or two, but then you should see that you can always jump onto another style and get again like master entire new realm of training and build up like dozens of new dimensions and abilities into your body by changing the phase. This is also like, I like this type of method because now we are talking about, oh well, you should train all this and train that and train that, and people are like that's not realistic. Also, you cannot train everything at once. So in some cases, like when people come up with this simple like 5x5 or the big five always goes usually with the 5x5. 5x5 means 5 repetitions for 5 sets, and this is like what they do. You pick a weight that you can lift, the like 5 repetitions. But the fact is that this is simple methodology, and it's very tempting because people are like lost in what am I gonna do? So if someone gives you 4 lifts, do these like religiously. You're gonna take that, and you're gonna be like this is very good. I don't need to think too much. I'm just gonna do this exercise. And in that sense, simplicity can be very good. It maybe helps a lot of people even stay like consistent in their training. But what I would recommend, pick a simple thing, do it for a period of time, then change it into another simple thing, like another simple, or not simple is maybe not the good term, but into, let's say, a good holistic combination of exercises. And then you switch it to another type of, again, method. Like this is how I've been actually training. This is how I've been mastering many different type of trainings. I had multiple phases in which I mastered different attributes of my body.
And the thing with mastering different phases is that once you have mastered something, you can maintain it very easily. For example, last year I was doing the Iron King stuff like non-stop, every week, every day almost, just training the grip, training the arms, training the forearms, doing the sandbag stuff. And now I still do it quite a lot, but way less. And I still make progress because I already made like the chunk of my progress last year. I just focused so heavily on this one thing. And now it's just maintained super easily, and it even makes progress just even if I do it once a week. Yeah. But of course I want to do it maybe twice per week. But in comparison to what I did it like last year, I was training like 5 times probably per week. And really spending lots of energy just on this thing.
Oh yeah, like thinking about when I built my mind-muscle connection, I built the body awareness, and I built the ability to stabilize my body, to contract my muscles by will. This was in, 2017 something, 2016, 17, 18. So that is already, like 6-7 years ago, right? That's when I used the most amount of time into that type of training, into like really high level, strict mobility training, precision training that we have in Athlete 26 method. And even to this day, I don't do a lot of those stuff anymore. I don't do that much, that type of training, but it's in my body. It's never left it. It's like, and it's actually, it just becomes stronger because it's like it develops almost by itself now. First, it took so much effort, like all my mental focus, because I was like, how do I feel these muscles? Now it's like, I just feel them. Like I can feel almost any muscle in any training that I'm doing. It's so natural. But I needed to first build that thing. But it's a very good point. Like when you master something, it will kind of stick in your body. I feel like now this Iron King method as well, like it has already left its mark into the body. Like my grip strength, probably my forearms will never go back to what they were, like because now they develop partially by themselves. And I still love the mace training. I just about to order a new mace. I checked the 8 kilo is back in stock, so I'm probably gonna have that one, and just keep in training with that. But yeah, this I suppose the bigger point here is considering the strongman training and powerlifting and even heavy lifting is like it can be there always, as a part of your training routine. But it's I just like to get people to open their minds that you can do those, but do a lot of other stuff as well and apply different methodologies.
Yeah, and the thing is that in the beginning, just focus on one thing and it's perfect.
Yeah.
But when you reach like a bit higher level, maybe after 1 year, like an intermediate level, or after 2 years, then variety and versatility becomes the most important, because because just doing the squat doesn't do it for you anymore. Like if you are not already like a super high level athlete, then you have to do like lots of variety. Like for example, the back squat is just not going to do it for you. Like it won't be enough. It will leave your body like undeveloped in so many areas in the legs and in terms of like athletic purposes as well. So you have to do maybe 10 different exercises. You have to do the split squats. You have to do all these different kind of uphill hiking as well, and train so many different parts of the legs. And the higher you develop, the more you have to like start like addressing different parts of the legs as well. So you have to do more and different kind of exercises.
Oh yeah.
And not get obsessed with one exercise or two exercises, but really focus on the fixing the weaknesses and imbalances first, and then just developing the very versatile like movement capacity and strength in every part of the body.
Yeah. This what you just what you're describing here, like this, I feel this is when we talk about strength, like this is really what we mean about it. It is in these little details that you have. Of course, it needs to be then connected to the like, let's say, like bigger functionalism, that you're actually like you have the individual parts, but you're able to combine them in your body into actual functional movement patterns and movement tasks and different, we can say feats of strength even. So. But it builds on to these smaller details, and it builds on to this balance of the musculature. And it is not only like strength consists of so many things. It also consists of your, for example, the flexibility, the pliability of your muscles. It's not just the contracting, like contracting super hard or something. There's a whole lot more that goes into it. I started to, I've been observing a lot of movements of the cat, because there's this where I'm living now in this villa, the neighbor's cat, it always comes to the backyard. I'm just observing how it does, how it jumps, because we never had a cat when I was growing up. We had dogs, and cats they're fascinating creatures. Their movements are so beautiful. Like I look at these cats and I kind of I admire them, because they are so fluid, right? And they can jump maybe. I don't know how high they can actually jump, but I saw this one cat, it was dropped like from 5 meters or something, and it just landed on its feet very softly, right? So for me, that is strength actually. Like people look at a cat, you wouldn't necessarily think, that's strength. But I look at the cat and I'm like, that is strength. That is real strength, because it's so versatile. It's so natural for this being. And I'm somehow like trying to make a comparison to the human being as well. When we are just like naturally functional in our bodies in all these different ways, we are also strong. This is, I guess, what we've been trying to bring here. But of course, human body is a little bit different, and we can very consciously develop it. And
like I said in the previous podcast, that speed, agility, even flexibility is a function of strength.
Yeah.
It means like the muscles are working properly.
Yep.
And likewise, that's why. Like there are different types of strength. For example, like people think that if you have high numbers in the lifts, or you're like a strong man like Eddie Hall, then the strength transfers very well to, let's say, wrestling.
Yeah.
But people don't realize that wrestling, it doesn't have the same type of strength. For example, the bench press, like this movement like here, it doesn't really transfer to almost anything. It transfers to some positions in crafting.
Yeah, it definitely.
It does. But for the most part, it's not really useful form of strength, because wrestling and grappling, it's mostly like squeezing strength. You are like squeezing with your upper body. You're squeezing with your legs. For example, the guard position, or let's say when you're like trying to hold somebody down, then you're squeezing with your legs. So it's more like this squeezing strength with your like upper body, but also with your legs. And this type of strength, it doesn't get developed with the big lifts. Of course, there's some transference, because strength will help in everything.
Yeah, like if you're like squeezing maybe Atlas stone or something, but
yeah, like that's what we have said, that like Atlas stone and the round sandbag, it has much more transference to, let's say, wrestling and grappling, because you're actually like holding something and squeezing something. But the actual barbell lifts, they lack actually the transference, because it's too easy to like grab, like the grip first principle is not good in the barbell lifts, and yeah.
Yeah, but this I just want to mention because there were like a couple of comments, related to this exact subject, in one of our video. One was like that strong plus skill is like bigger than weak and skill. So first of all, we've never said that you should be weak. This is very weird idea. We're just stating that you should be strong in a very different manner, because now that when they're saying strong plus skill, what are they really meaning? They are meaning the more weight you can lift plus skill equals like better results. And this was in related to wrestling and like MMA. And the truth is that the more like lifting more weight plus skill does not equal better results actually in the mat or in the grappling, in the wrestling, or even the MMA. It just doesn't go like this. People think that the like, for example, building strength happens in isolation, and you can just have this unlimited amount of strength that you're building. And in an ideal world, this could maybe be true. And the sentence itself, strength plus skill, is better than weak plus whatever like skill. I 100% agree. But for me, the strength is very different. And now to the other comment, which was that if Eddie Hall would train 2 years of like grappling and wrestling, then he would dominate everybody. Like with all due respect, like even I could be, or some high-level athlete, other high-level athlete from some other sport could be training for 2 years, wrestling and grappling, and he still wouldn't probably dominate anyone of the higher level people. Like I'm not saying like Eddie Hall could probably get really good, but one of the reasons why he would get good in the wrestling is that he would get worse in the lifting. So now people again make a thing, let's say Eddie Hall, he lifted like 500 kilogram deadlift. Probably, he's not able to even do it now because it was like his highest record. And I don't know if he put that much emphasis on it anyway, anyhow. But let's say he was in the 500. Now he does 2 years of grappling or wrestling, and his deadlift drops into like 300 kilograms. So people were like, oh, now he's like 200 kilo less than before. So he is much weaker now than before. Whereas in reality, if he became better in the wrestling and the grappling, in my perspective, he would be a lot stronger. Because I don't watch the weight. I watch the overall strength that he has in his body. And this is something you've been talking about now, that it's the wrestling strength is different. Because most people don't understand, if you're doing, for example, grappling, and if you would do some other mobility stuff, then aside that, to help with his grappling and wrestling, he would build so much muscle. He would build so much muscle, but it's very different to the muscle that he would use in the deadlift. The different oblique areas in your core, his grip strength would be developed also. The inner thighs, the adductor areas, the hip flexors would develop in a totally different manner. His hamstrings would develop in the different fibers and then differently compared to what he's now.
And neck as well.
Neck muscles, yeah.
Yeah, his neck would like...
The whole musculature would be different. And I think this is the big thing that people they cannot understand, that they cannot accept, that if Eddie Hall lifted less in strongman lifts, but he would be still stronger. Even if he lifted less, he would be stronger than what he is when he lifted more, if he were to like do versatile movement in the terms of, for example, wrestling or grappling.
And this is what we mean when we talk about our strength training, because what we do is universal strength training, and it's actually just complete strength training, because it really, the purpose is to really target every part of the body. Like your neck needs to be strong.
Yeah.
Your certain fibers in the inner thighs needs to be strong. Every part of the ankle and the calves need to be strong, because when every part of your body is strong up to its individual potential, then you have actually the most transferable strength and crossover to like any activity. You have to learn the skill of the activity, of course, but you have the potential to get very good with the highest probability of success when you have the good base, because we are all about building the foundation and building the base of athleticism and strength in every part of the body.
Yeah.
And the lifts, they just don't, they are one part of it, or the the movement patterns, the lift strain.
Yeah.
For example, the horizontal row, horizontal push pressing, and all this.
These patterns
Yeah,
are
different patterns like hip abduction and shoulder abduction and all these different parts. Like it's part of it, but it doesn't feel the whole picture. And we are about the whole picture. We are like it's the complete picture. Or we try to make it as complete as possible. And it doesn't have to be. It's not complicated, but but it is more complicated than just focusing on one thing and doing it forever.
Yeah, I mean it is, but also, you know, when people say like, well, the simple is good, and that's true, but like I don't think that we need to assume that people would be so simple themselves that they could not handle a bit of like more like multidimensional movements. You know, like let's say for example, you're doing the 5 lifts because well, everything else is too complex. You know, how much more complex would it be, for instance, to add like catwalk or bear walk, even just movement drills, like 3 different or 5 different movement drills to your repertoire. I don't think that's like too much to ask from anyone. Like, and I'd like to expect a lot more from people, even from the people who listen to us. Like, I'm sure like you can do more. You know, it's ridiculous to, yes, okay, people have a lot of limitations. There can be tight schedule. You know, you have like 3 kids and you have a job you need to be and all that, and maybe you're busy, but still, I don't think it's an excuse to just to focus on these couple lifts. And it's better than doing nothing for sure. But there's just a ton of alternatives. Just opening the eyes, you know, searching a little bit wider, further into YouTube or into our methods, you're going to find a ton of ways to develop your body.
And for us, since last year or almost 2 years now, like the big discovery was that how weak our hands and feet actually were. Because people have to understand that your athleticism is limited by your feet and your functionality is limited by your hands and grip in particular. And that's why it's super important that whatever you lift or whatever exercise you do, it's also challenging for the grip and also challenging for the stabilizing of the feet and ankles as well. And that's why I think like climbing is amazing, because it's very challenging for the grip. Like every movement you have to have a strong grip, and that's why uphill hiking is amazing for the athletic legs, because the terrain is so uneven and it really challenges the feet and the ankles and every part of the legs in terms of so and that's the problem with when it's too convenient and too comfortable, then it doesn't build the functional strength.
No, it can build like some mobility or fix some imbalances, but
it can develop the body, but it doesn't produce the necessarily the athleticism and the functionality that people want. It's good for health and good for this, but you have to have the grip first principle. I think it's the first grip principle of functionality.
Yeah. All right. Stay strong.